started. Welcome everyone to Marketeers Clubhouse. I am Jamie Kalon. Producer Brad's sitting in the background today doing Brad stuff. And Brad, do you have your mute on, I think? Okay, beautiful. My guest today is, I don't even know where to start with you, George. You've haunted the airways in Canada forever.
Haunted is the right way to say it, by the way.
You literally were my gateway to music when I was a younger man, and you were a young man. We're not far in age apart, but you brought music videos into Canada as a VJ, and then you've been a staple in Canadian media for a long time. And I am really excited to talk to you about your career and your positioning and how you market yourself. You're for all to see a maverick in what you do. You are uniquely you. You have a hard, like, you don't fit a mold unless it's the George mold.
Yeah, for better or for worse, often worse, for sure.
Well, you know, I everywhere I go, I leave a Jamie shaped Kool-Aid man hole in a wall, and it is what it is. You've had
it's nice to be with you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And for people who don't know, George is amazing, and we're proud that you're a Canadian. You're living in LA right now, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm still live in Toronto, but I've been working in LA and New York, so I kind of go, and a little bit London over the years too. So I go where the mic is and where the opportunity and the adventure is. This is what's really important to me. But Toronto will always be my home.
Beautiful. And Canada loves you, and you're always welcome to come and go as you please in my books. Well, not that I'm the king of Canada, although if there was a king of Canada, I'd probably run for it. I don't think I'd get it, but I'd try.
Get on your bike. If it's a downhill race, no one will catch you.
Yeah, there's a few guys that are really good now, but if they were all my age, maybe not. I might do it okay. Your career, I'd love you to. So we end up with a lot of younger people watching this. This is a business / marketing thing, and the business of being you are marketing you and your management of your own career. Mm-hmm. You are not just selling you to get onto TV, but you're positioning programming and concepts and ideas and stuff. I'm really interested because there's an analog to this that I've been trying to crack the code on in the music industry. How do young artists come up in a weird omni-channel world that is our world today? Made way more sense. And then I was actually thinking about this on my drive in. There are way more positions. There's almost an infinite amount of content that music can fill. There's always room for another insane band. In your world, there specifically, let's go back 20 years, there's 20 TV stations that could potentially absorb what you did in North America. Two real specific ones. You're more of a unicorn than any band would ever be. Like you hit it right, and you got that dream job, which allowed you to make this career. How did it all start? Take us back to young George in Toronto and what your aspirations were, and if and how you got to where you wanted to be in those early years.
It's funny because I look back now and the career makes sense based on what I was interested in and what I did and what I pursued when I was 14, let's say. But at the time, none of it made any sense. And I didn't actually have any real aspirations. I was one of those kids who could never afford university. So post-secondary wasn't ever going to be part of my life in that respect. I ended up going to a community college. I had no athletic ability. Became a classically trained piano player, but the kind of music I listened to didn't have classical music. I was listening to some pretty intense stuff back then. It was a steady diet of The Clash and Metallica and Pantera and Slayer when I was young, and Bob Dylan, of course. But so honestly, the things that I did didn't lend themselves to a career that I was going to have. And I come from a family that didn't really have careers. We just had jobs. And so my father worked on the Ford assembly line plant before he split. My grandfather worked on the Ford assembly line, and that's what was going to be my job, probably bolting seats into cars. But of course, we knew machines were going to take those jobs away in many respects. So I honestly had zero ambitions. I thought I would like to be a film director. I thought I'd like to write and direct films, but to be honest with you, didn't know anybody in the game and never even thought that I could do it. I wasn't an overly confident guy. I was a cocky guy, but not a confident guy. And so I was a movie theater usher, and I honestly thought that was kind of it. Maybe I would just get a job as a manager in the theater, and maybe I could make indie films. But here's the thing: I'm smack dab Gen X, and so the people that I liked in terms of the stuff they were making were doing really interesting things. And some of them broke through the mainstream, the Beastie Boys, and many of them did not. They were artists or bands or writers that you never really heard because they were just part of your scene. So I just thought, well, maybe I'll just make films and be a part of this little community. But honestly, nothing took place. I shortly thereafter, I was sweet on a girl who worked at a satellite office for a community college next door to my movie theater. And she was way out of my league, but I used to hang around there all the time. And I was a teenager and I wanted to get a motorcycle license. So I had to go and pay for it there. And she, I guess, recognized that I was some lost little puppy dog after her. And she said, here, why don't you take this home? And it was a course calendar for Humber College. And I saw radio broadcasting in it. And I grew up adoring radio. I grew up in Toronto, and I don't know what it was like where you grew up, but in Toronto at the time, there were two radio stations that were absolute monsters in the community. They were so great. They were so great. The music was so great. The jocks were so interesting. Before everything got homogenized and flattened, where they really valued, and again, that's that Gen X thing, they really valued the interesting and provocative, but still responsible to the audience, kind of that was incredible on Q107 and The Edge. So I went, oh, I love that stuff. I'm a loudmouth. I know a ton about music because I love music. And that was it. I loved music and I loved movies and I read. So I looked at it and I went, oh, all the things I'm interested in, because this is, as you know, pre-internet, and my mom, we didn't have cable. In fact, the only television we had, my mom found in a garbage and she left it in her closet. So we could only watch TV one night a week, really, and maybe one period of the hockey game. So, but it was there where I saw the new music on City TV in Toronto. And suddenly I went, oh, I think the things that I actually love, I might be able to find a home here. And so I just applied to one radio school, one radio course. My meeting with the radio department lasted, this is not an exaggeration, by the way, dude, maybe 12 to 15 seconds. That's how long my meeting was, maybe 30. It was one question and over. And I was working at the movie theater down the street in a neighborhood called Rexdale. I remember calling my mom from a payphone saying, yeah, there's no way I got in. That was the shortest meeting I've ever had in my life. But then I got a letter and I got in, and that was how the whole thing started. So when I got into radio, though, radio was still a really powerful way to express yourself, but also to draw a line between people who might not otherwise be connected to you and to each other. And so my only dream was to be on the air overnights on radio, playing great music and telling stories and taking calls. That's all I wanted out of my career.
I love that. Yeah.
And honestly, dude, if I look now, doing the show for Apple in 165 countries, doing my live streams on my YouTube channel and on Instagram, it's essentially what I'm doing now, because I love what that really is. I have spent my entire, I mean, look, you did this in your career too. You have a passion for a thing and you have a purity in what it is. But then as you get more successful at it and have more opportunities, all of a sudden, the artifice starts to build up around you and further removes you from the thing. But what I love about where we are now, technologically speaking, is all the artifice is gone. And I'm right back to the thing that I cared about. So I got into radio that way. I had an internship in Kelowna, BC, where I was doing a metal show and I was a mascot dressed as a lizard marketing the radio station. I went back to Toronto, where I'm from, to work at a sports radio station that had just launched, and I loved sports. So because I loved music and sports, and it was that early 90s where all those communities came together in a really interesting way. And indie culture and alternative culture was big. It was, as you said, I timed it I didn't plan it, but the timing was just right, where I showed up on the air as a wild kid who just happened to be connected to history and understood politics and all this other stuff because it was just my interests.
I love that. And I try to tell as many people as I can, just literally, like, a job is something that you get paid for. A career is something that you love, and you almost don't give a shit if you get paid for. You obviously want to be able to support yourself and do these things. However, there's like a weird difference between the two. So find the thing you love. There's probably a way to make money doing it, and then go do it. And not to the point that you want to ruin the thing you love, because that obviously can happen. Like, hockey player that plays a billion games may not want to strap the skates on just for fun. Like, they might just be tired of it. But
they often do. You catch them at a game of shinny. You often, Paul McCartney, after a tour and a big long show, will end up in a hotel room with a bunch of people, and out comes the guitar, and they'll play and sing.
I love that so much. But that's, they've taken their passion and magnified it to a point that's so hyperbolic externally. They may not feel like it's so big. There's no way you could feel the echoes of that continuously. Maybe, like, I'm assuming Taylor Swift pulls a guitar out every once in a while when she's by herself, purely for enjoyment. In fact, I would guarantee you that still happens. And I cross my fingers that happens for every artist or every person that does their thing. And you might be an accountant, you might be an actuary, but you love numbers and you want to play with numbers and do these things. Whatever it is, go for it and run with it hard. So you started doing that. I'm curious, when you finally got into radio and you spent your time at the community college, did you get into one of the two big radio stations? Where did you land? What station did you land at?
I did. So I started at the Fan, and I was doing an overnight radio show, music, and I was producing for other hosts. And I was the guy that if you called a sports talk show, and some kid with a crackly voice answered the phone, that was me. And I would determine if you could get on the air. And then I started to fill in and do sports updates. And then eventually I got my own show. But I got my own show because it was right around the time when I quit drinking too. So I needed to not be in my life anymore, and I needed to not be in my group anymore. So what I did was I started to go to work on every day off that I had, every day off. And I would go into a production studio, again, pre-internet. I didn't have a personal computer at the time. I would sneak into a studio, I would draw the blinds, and I would fake a radio show when it was empty at night because I knew nobody would be there. Nobody would be there overnight, so I'd fake a show. And what ended up happening was I was there so much that I remember I developed a confidence, and I told the boss one day, I said, "Hey man, between 2 a.m. and 3:15 in the morning, nothing's on the air. We're just replaying a Blue Jays game. Can I go on the air?" And I told him I would just play old interviews. So I would just do the throws to them.
Right.
But I want mic time. But he had seen my dedication. And so I started to pick up slots 15 minutes at a time, an hour at a time. And so this is how I started to build an enormous amount. There's all these Kobe clips circulating around now about, I'm by no means Kobe Bryant in terms of talent, no means. But all these clips circulating around about the practice that he did. And that's my whole career. To this day, before you and I hopped on, I was building a studio and I was practicing on a particular project. So I still practice at a rate because I love the practice. I love the practice of it. I think there's something really beautiful in the practice, and the practice should be as enjoyable as the game in my mind. So I worked with, and so what ended up happening was my long roundabout Robertson Davies way to get to your question, to answer it, is I got a call. So one of the radio stations that I liked, The Edge, the CFNY station, which was more alternative, I mailed a tape to the boss, and I said to him, I don't believe how much cockiness I had at the time, but I left him a voicemail, and I said, "Hey, Stu, I saw your name in a broadcasting book that said you're the boss here. So I'm sending you my tape. I have a show up the street, so I'm not asking you for a job. I like my job. I'm hoping over time that you can maybe hear these tapes and give me some pointers, because my desire is to be the best at this. And I know that I can't be the best unless the people who are in the positions of power guide me. So that's what I need from you. I essentially left him that voice note. I wrote him a letter. I didn't have a cell phone at the time. Nobody had cell phones, really, only doctors. And I just mailed him a tape. That was it. I think I mailed him 2 tapes. Never heard anything back. But that's very common. I mailed out 1 million tapes. Nobody got back to me. One guy once wrote me a letter back saying, thanks, keep it up. That was it. But randomly one day I got a call from that guy who said, hey, dude, you want to have lunch? And I said, sure. And I met him for lunch. And he said, I don't have a job for you at all. And I went, cool. Okay, yeah, cool. I like my job. He goes, but I'm going to hire you anyway. And I said, but what do you mean? And he says, I don't have a job for you. Do you trust me? And I'm an idiot. So I said, yeah. Like, why would I trust a stranger? I said, yeah. So he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just hang around and hand out tickets to concerts. And let's see if I can find you a shift here and there. And I think what he was doing was testing me. And I said, yeah, no problem. Because I knew that it was time to grow, in the Edge and in the 90s was a great place. So he put a little notice on the bulletin board by this booth saying, I hired this kid from up the street at the Fan. He's going to start handing out tickets, maybe yak on the mic someday. That's all he said. And I'm now that I think back, he was testing to see if I was driven by ego or which I'm not. That's the one thing that I can say for sure. I'm not. What happened was he put me on the air a couple days later on an overnight shift. And I did what I always do, which is I slid my tape underneath the door of his locked office. And I said, give me your thoughts. And then he came down the next day and he said to me, he was very complimentary about my show. And then I was on the air pretty much all the time from then on, and I was at the Edge. So, and I was told later, going back to the beginning of this, that the reason he wanted to hire me was he said I was as comfortable talking about popular music as underground music, as I was politics, as I was a boxing match from the 60s, as I was about a film. So he wanted somebody who was really connected to the world at large. And it just happened to be all the stuff that I fed myself when I was a teenager. And my uncle Paul, introduced me to all this great art. And that's why I got the job.
That's amazing. So I'm an inquisitive guy. When you brought up 2 things that were really interesting, there's so many interesting things, but something that's sort of sticking in my brain right now that I have to ask. You brought up the difference between cocky and confident. Mm-hmm. When you changed your life, quit drinking, and shifted your gears, was that your cocky to confident, the first engagement into gear 1 towards confidence? That, like, I'm just trying to analyze, like, how does somebody go, okay, it's time for a change, and you're walking around as a cocky guy at that point.
Yeah.
And you make a life decision as a young man that most people don't make a decision. It's time for me to move forward as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, to me, that feels like literally like the shift of the gear into, I'm going to start going in the direction of being a confident person. And then with your pure grit and work ethic, and the cocky / confident component of being able to just, like, it is confidence with an edge of cockiness to reach out to someone to be a mentor, like you did. And you reached out to someone and be like, hey, I don't need a job. I just want to be around you.
Yeah.
When you look back on that, is that like such a fundamental turning point on?
Massive.
It has to be, right?
Yeah, massive. There's no, I don't have the life I have. I don't get to do the things I do or be a part of the things I was if I didn't make that choice. Cockiness and confidence. Cockiness is whether or not you can do it. You just pretend you can. You're bluster. And then confidence is when you start to realize, oh, maybe I can do it. But what I realized, I had this kind of bizarre set of epiphanies when I was young, not to put too fine a point on it, but that it occurred to me, this might have been there was a time when I was living on the basement floor with some buddies. There's a whole bunch of us that had this one place. Well, 2 brothers, the great guys, the Rodriguez brothers, had this really low rent basement apartment in the neighborhood I grew up in. And it was a drop-in center for all of us. So I was laying we didn't have a bed, so I was sleeping on the carpet there was a carpet over this concrete floor, the kind where you'd have rats and roaches running over you. And I was probably blitzed out of my mind. Had partied for a month or something. And it occurred to me that if you're lucky in life, you are going to be older a lot longer than you're young. If you're lucky. And I was young, and I was squeezing all the life out of being young and all the life out of being a bit lost, a little bit, maybe not lost. I just wandered. I was intentionally lost because I had good people around me who tried in the neighborhood. People cared and they wanted to put you on a path, but I was never going to get on that path. So I intentionally lost myself out there. And I realized that a couple friends died and things were going on. And I just kind of went, God, this is not a way this might be cute when I'm 22, but if I keep this up when I'm 32, 42, 52, I won't make it, right? The other thing is that, and I think this is at its core, and I don't know if you can teach this. I don't know if you can, or I don't know if you can teach this past a certain point, is I love to learn. And I love doing things I'm not good at because I don't really care how people feel about it in the moment, how they react to me. What I love is, can I get good at this? And if I get good or great at a thing, I apply no value to it. I have no sense of accomplishment. I have no sense of pride in the work. I don't have any of those feelings about my career. It's the doing of the thing that I really like and learning how to do the thing. And I think when I quit drinking, and look, man, I wish I could now. It's just not my story, right? And I miss all of that. I'm one of those guys who doesn't drink, who's a vegan, who misses all of it. I miss all of it. And I miss all of it. But I think the thing that I have, and there may be people who have as much as me, but I've never met anybody who has more than me in this career, which is discipline. Because I'm not motivated. I'm not ambitious per se. I'm not particularly inspired by all the time. I have moments of that, but I don't need it to do the thing. It's discipline. Yeah, the discipline. And maybe it was my way of, when you're in a really vulnerable, broken state, how your bone heals is what your bone is now when you break it. I feel like maybe when all of my insides physically and emotionally felt broken, I healed by being at work practicing. So I healed in a position that was always ready to go. So I kind of feel that's what happened to me, and my whole life has kind of become a result of that really big choice. And as you know, the enormous grace of others, the amount of people who have to care about you, even though they have no reason to.
Yeah. What was his name at the Edge? Was Stu? Is that what you said?
Stu Myers, who's a Calgary radio legend.
Yeah. So like without him,
without Bob Makowitz Sr., without Stu Myers, without Nelson Millman, without Denise Donlin and David Kynes, without Kirsten Stewart or Heaton Dyer or Jen Detman, these are the people who took chances on me when it wasn't popular in their own places. And without them,
it's funny. I've got a list. I can name it right now. Yeah. My parents. We were going to take them out because they're obviously took very good chances on me because I was a maniac. Kevin McNaughton, Daryl Coburn-Zarud, Marinoni, Jose Porro. Like, I've got a really solid list of people. There's 15 of them that have all taken chances, big chances on.
Yeah. I can name 4 teachers from high school. I can name 2 from college. Yeah. And I think it's important to have that list, dude.
I think, that's interesting.
Lest you ever think that you did it on your own, right? Because we didn't.
Yeah. I've got I run I have a company, and I've got a bunch of employees and stuff, a couple companies, and I've got partners and stuff. And there was a real interesting point. Not ever did I take them for granted because I've never done that. I always really appreciate the people that work for me. But one day I was sitting around analyzing my own broken thinking and what I am. And I was like, for God fucking sake, these people aren't riding my coattails, because there was an inkling of something that went wrong. And I'm like, these guys are just on my, on my coattails, but they're not. They're actually carrying my coats for me, all of them. And
Yes.
without them, I can't do what I do. And
Yes.
it's impossible. Like, I am literally nothing without all of the team doing all of what they do, from the cleaners who come and clean the office once a week to whatever. All of these little things, like, without those things that you take for granted, that you're just actually, in some instances, just economically paying for, whether it's employees or whatever, but without them, not to mention what I would do without Brad Ralph or my wife or, my 50 other friends. I feel really lucky as a guy.
Mm-hmm.
I see people walk around that are like, yeah, I've got like one best friend. I got like 20 guys that I consider brothers, beyond, like, above best friends. Like, Brad's my brother. Like, and I cherish that stuff so much, because I think I've spent so long working so hard to try to accumulate all those things, that at least I've got the perspective now. Although I've always cherished my friends, because I'm a person who is not afraid to ask friends for help, which is one thing that I teach people. You reached out to Stu and asked for a mentorship, not because he was a friend, but because you knew that it was something you needed to do. You thought it was the right move. And I feel that when people are building careers, reaching out and asking is the number one thing. If someone comes into my office and asks for a raise, I go, okay, cool. How do we get you there? What can we do to sort of put you into this position as more of a progressive boss? But if someone comes into my office and says, how can I do more work? How can I do more, like, to help? I want to grow and do more. Automatically, I'm in a different headspace, and I'm putting them into this different bucket. And it's just a really slightly different way to approach it. But those are the people that my organization's filled with, is how do I do more to help with this? And it makes it really easy when compensation time comes through. It's an easier story. And it's funny, because those are the people that I've luckily surrounded myself with all the way through.
Transform your trade marketing with Regulator, where trade marketing precision meets sales tool performance. Regulator ensures every marketing dollar is spent wisely, keeps your team aligned with defined user governance. Whether you're managing local campaigns or global initiatives, Regulator keeps your marketing efforts streamlined and effective in the real world. Give us 15 minutes to show you how we will save you time and money. Go to brandregulator.com.
You said so much at the beginning. You would have loved the conversation. We did a recording yesterday with Vince Bannon. Did I get his last name right, Brad? Do you know Vince?
I know of him because of you guys.
Yeah. And so he grew up in Windsor, haunted Detroit, literally, ran a bunch of the clubs. And he's like, he is so gritty and so smart, and went through like, he's had the ability, as a slightly older Gen Xer than us, to be like, he hung out with the Police on their first tour because he booked them into the club.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he's hung out with Dre. He helped Apple. Like, he's just been in these unreal positions through his life. And it all comes from, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel that your growth comes from being gritty enough to know that when an opportunity is put in front of you, you've done so much hard work always through your practicing, but that grit that it's built, when you see an opportunity, you know how to analyze it really quickly to take advantage of it. Is that a fair?
I think you're certainly in a much better position to get it, for sure. Definitely. I think there's another step in here, which is you have to make a decision on what do you want more, the experience or the end result. And if it's about the end result, well, then you're going to need stability. You're going to need some kind of financial situation. You're going to need, it's going to have to go your way, because if it doesn't go your way, then you will not have achieved the goal.
Mm.
For me, it never occurred to me that I could have a career. So in this field specifically.
Mm.
So I obviously wanted to have a show where I could get paid enough where I could feed myself. You know, I was sort of tired. At one point when I was in radio, I was so broke. I was living with this woman. She's still a great friend. We couldn't afford a mattress, so we had a futon frame that we found in the garbage. We had a sheet over it that my mom gave me, and we slept on the slats. And so obviously at some point you want to get paid, so that's not your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it became very clear to me that I wasn't willing to make the choices you got to make to be mainstream. So I think, you know, with Vince and with you and Brad and with me and a lot of us, the era that we grew up in really valued, and there was still space to be your kind of own rogue person. So you could be all of a sudden just some kid who haunts a place and then gets an opportunity. You may break down the door, but sometimes the guy just opens the door, the girl opens the door before you knock, because they've seen you out there already, and they bring you in, and then all of a sudden that happened to me in my life, where I'd look around and say, how am I on this plane with you too? This doesn't make any sense. But that kind of stuff, I think I think you're right about how you can recognize the opportunity, but I think it's actually more important that even if you don't recognize the opportunity, you have done enough, you've been there and done enough of the work, that the slightly more experienced older people who do recognize the opportunity guide it towards you. And that's certainly been my experience. And I try to do that now when I'm working with cats a little bit younger than me, or a lot younger than me now that I'm this fucking old. But so I do think that there's an element of the practice, opportunity and all that other stuff. That's important. But I think it really shows your dedication to this. And that dedication is, why else would somebody entrust you with their art or their business unless you've really earned it?
Yeah. And nothing comes free or cheap. Right. Anywhere, anytime. Anyone who thinks it does, there Instagram and social and all these things, and heck, I even know friends that have had what appears to be lightning success. None of it's lightning. No. You don't get the body you see on Instagram in 30 seconds. It's these things it's not reality. There's so much grit and work that goes into everything. Most people don't see it. I said it on a friend of ours, Shayna's podcast, is no one's ever jealous of the work you did to get to where you are in the futon frame. They're just jealous that you have a career and you have options now and a beautiful life. Mm-hmm. That's what they just see that and they're like, oh, I'm jealous of that. And it's like, no, you have no idea of the nightmare worth of grit and effort that it takes to get to that spot. How many times you put band-aids on your body and your personality and in your brain to correct all the bad stuff that's happened to get you to where you are. They're covered in them. No one looks at that, right?
No. And nor should they, because if I never want to kill anybody's dream, right? So when I was in Humber College for radio, they would always bring in experienced jocks or program directors who would talk to the class. And they would all tell us the same thing. All of them. This is impossible to get in this business. 95% of you won't make it, and blah. That was their reality check. I learned over time it's because they just didn't have any imagination. So what I say to kids is, sure, it's hard, but maybe you are the one, because why not? Like, why not? And so if the amount of the cost it took to get the opportunities to do the thing that you and I have been able to do in our careers, the toll was enormous. My body's not the same. My brain's not the same. I don't have a family in the same way. This is my life. I remember leaving the emergency room of a hospital after having a motorcycle accident with broken bones and refusing to miss a show and going to work and going on that Red Chair talk show on CBC with my arm in a sling. And because I had to be sharp on the air, I wouldn't take any painkillers, not even Advil. So I'd be on the air with broken bones, a concussion, and I would just give her, which is stupid. I know that now, but it's how you do it. And so the cost for sure was enormous, but I also would never call it a sacrifice, because a sacrifice is when, as you know, is when you do a thing for nothing in return. I just made a choice in an investment. And there's an element of, in our era, where people get a little bit emotional about the wrong parts of the career. And they talk about, oh, what it's not a sacrifice. Stop making it grander than it is. You just made a choice and it's an investment. And the more you own up to the fact that it's a choice, it empowers you to make the kinds of choices better down the road. So for sure, my life is not like my friends. One of my best friends is my brother, is a guy called Jim Richards, who I still think is the greatest radio guy in the history of Canada. He's on the air in Toronto. And we were at a movie the other night in Toronto. We went to go see a film, and it's like we had our heads down in the studio for the last 30 years. And we took our headphones off and we came out of the studio and we looked and saw everybody's got lives and kids and things. Him and I are still going at the same pace that we met in our early 20s.
Yeah.
So this is just the choices we made. And I don't overly romanticize the journey. I'm grateful for it. But my grandmother, man, she came here from Eastern Europe, war-torn, clean bathrooms and kitchens for a living. When they forced her to retire, she was pissed because she wanted to keep working. I mean, that woman's glamorous, and I got to make a living sharing bands. By the way, most of the time, hard to listen to bands, like a niche kind of metal and punk that I loved. I do not over romanticize the journey at all. This is just work. And I love the work and I respect the work. It's a craft, right? And I think the reps are important, but I never, ever lose sight of the fact that it's why I understand in the right context, certainly in marketing, you're building a brand and you're nurturing a brand, but I very rarely use that word because I don't want my subconscious to hear it, right? I don't want my subconscious to hear it because maybe it does change how you view stuff and how you make choices. And I'm very hesitant about that. And
keep your humanity. Don't turn anything into a brand personal.
Totally. Don't be mad when you don't get the thing that you wanted to get because you weren't willing to do the thing that you have to do to get that thing.
100%, which sometimes is actually morally something that you wouldn't want to do regardless. And then you can't be upset if you can't do it.
Experience the ultimate in brand hygiene with Regulator's Market Check AI engine. Powered by your team's in-market photos, Regulator AI insights guide both marketing and sales teams in making informed decisions and allow your trade marketing team to maximize impact and deliver sales tools with laser precision. This, combined with Regulator's gold standard toolset, you will efficiently manage custom art, fixtures, point-of-purchase materials, and promotions, ensuring a dynamic and responsive market presence for your brand. Give us 15 minutes to show you how we will save you time and money. Go to brandregulator.com.
Yeah, I find that I don't know. I get really trapped in just trying to help younger people move forward. And you've just given us an insane wealth of really smart, gritty advice wrapped into one nice little statement that has barely gotten us into where the next phases of your life, when you go from radio and you end up on TV. Now, and this isn't like, I don't interview people. It's not what this is. I'm just so fucking curious because it's never happened to me, and I've always wondered what it would feel like, and I've never had the opportunity to really. I sat with Gene Simmons just by accident at a friend's wedding, and I sat there kind of awestruck, and he didn't want to have this conversation one bit. But when you're a young man and you've gone from sleeping on a futon to being on TV and being nationally recognized, what happens? Like what what grows, what breaks inside, what changes, because something's got to change.
I'm assuming you've seen The Karate Kid, right?
Of course.
So as it turns out, Mr. Miyagi was right about everything. And the wax on, wax off, wash on, wash off, that's the thing. That, because you never know when your muscle memory is going to allow you to make a block or avoid a punch. I feel like the way I approached the first 8 years. So when I got on MuchMusic, and this is why I think my career I've been so blessed in the career that I've had, is by the time I got on TV, I had already been doing this for about 7 or 8 years. So I had a lot of experience. I had a lot of the wax on, wax off. And I wasn't prepared for the thing that happened when your face is on TV. But when it happened, I wasn't thrown by it because I had enough reps. Plus the kind of family I come from, my mom my mom still doesn't care what I do for a living. Nobody in my family. They just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't like all of a sudden I had any sense of self. I don't have that now, and I didn't then. But I will say this. I'm grateful that when I got on TV, it was at MuchMusic, because, and it's impossible to explain to people how I think Canada was partly better because of MuchMusic.
Oh, it fully was, like, without a shadow of a doubt. We
had this kind of community that we built. And because I was not the mainstream guy, I was the punk and metal guy, but also because I was the interview guy, I never had to play a role. And what they hired was the guy they heard on the radio station, The Edge, before.
Right.
So they just heard me, and they saw so what happened was very smart. The guy who ran the place, David Kynes, I didn't know this until at the end of the night. He went and hung around my radio station while I was on the air, and he would just watch how I was on the radio and how I was we had these ropes that you would, we were on the street at Yonge Street in Toronto, and there were ropes away from the booth, and the kids would come in and stand and would watch the show. I would always take the ropes down, and the kids would just come sit with us at the table, and they were a part of it. And I think he was there watching one night because they had asked me if I wanted to work there. I met with somebody. It was fine. The meeting was fine. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I didn't pursue it. Like most of my career, dude, I don't pursue it. I just do the thing that feels right. And thankfully, my first instincts are so often wrong about work, because my default position is I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything. It's like, oh, here, come do this event. No. I say yes, and then I instantly regret it. So when I got called by the Much people, I met with them, but I was like, whatever. He hung around, and then he called me the next day. No, at the end of the night, he said, so do you want this job or what? And I said, what? Like, what do you mean? And that's where it kind of happened. So when I got onto TV, I didn't have to be a different version. I was just me. And in fact, in my whole career, when I got to be me, that's when it worked. When they tried to mold me into a thing, it's when it didn't work. And I'm okay with that. So the onslaught, you know what happened, dude? Because Toronto is I'm from Toronto. That's what I love about it. People would talk to me and they would call your name out or take photos, but it's still pretty standoffish, or at least it was back then. And I loved that about it. When I went on tour with a couple bands, and Rick Campanelli, Rick the Temp, and I, who I still love to this day, we ended up in Edmonton at a concert tour, and it was at whatever the football stadium was at the time, where the now Elks
Commonwealth,
the big, was it Commonwealth, the big outdoor, and I didn't realize how big MuchMusic was until that moment. That's when we were there with Our Lady Peace, the Foo Fighters, Smashing Pumpkins, A Perfect Circle, Eve 6. It was If Naked. It was a crazy great tour, right? And I didn't. That's when I went, this is different. This is different. And so what I just wanted to do was enjoy it. I enjoyed it, But I think I got there at the end of the 90s. I had quit drinking about 4.5 years earlier. And I'm convinced that that's the game changer for me there, because in the music business, it was booze and drugs and parties, and all available and all free, or not all free, but you know what they say, they get you free for the first couple, and then so it was, but I was no longer participating.
So it was easy.
So I just stayed out of trouble, and I'd be at some parties, and I'd be really grateful because some OG, you know, because I come from neighborhoods that had OGs, right, and some OGs would tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Georgie, it's you should probably leave now." Because the raid was coming, or the thing was coming, or a fight, or the guns were. So I got a few of those taps, and I'm grateful that the OGs who knew me from the old days would just give me a break. Yeah. So I avoided a lot of trouble because I wasn't drunk or high.
Yeah, that's huge.
Humongous, man. And when other people got really messed up and couldn't make the gig, I could make the gig because I was always available. So I really, really think that the quitting drinking thing was great for the early part of my career, but it prepared me for the profile that came with being on MuchMusic at the time.
I would have never put that together. I was the exact opposite. I didn't have a drop of alcohol till I was 30.
Because you were an athlete.
I was an athlete. And so, so I partake in it now ever so slightly, but it's never been a thing in my world. It's not like it's ever been any remotely part of an issue, but I was just right out of it regardless. Yeah. And so I feel that those things, like if I could recommend something to someone that's young, and thankfully the younger generation just doesn't even care for alcohol in most ways. Talk to anyone who owns an alcohol or beer company.
It's wild, isn't it?
Well, they're getting massacred in the market.
We used to stand outside beer stores, try to get some older dude, give him $5 to go buy us a case when we were 13. Like, it's crazy how it's changed in the culture, but it's good. It's good because, you know, because it's not good for you.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons they're going to live to 120.
Yeah,
there's zero doubt that's what's going to happen. I'm interested because this is something I was thinking about a few days ago. I've been actively, like, I'm a yes guy. If someone brings me an opportunity, my default, there's a couple things that I consider my superpowers. And it's not skill or intelligence or any of the above, specifically not spelling, that got me where I was, is I didn't say no to anything. Bad stuff. You know, I just was never involved with it. People knew not to ask me if I wanted to do cocaine. It never happened. But between that and saying yes to everything, taking the opportunity almost every time, I found myself, as I've gotten more successful and as I've gotten better, I'm actually saying no more. Yeah. And I'm being more effective, but I feel that it's like when you're young, your yeses have to be this giant base where you're just going and you're trying and tasting everything, whether you're effective at it or not, doesn't matter. You said yes, and you went and tried out for football, or whatever. You said yes, and you went on the date with the girl, whatever. Yes, I took the job. Now I'm getting more effective by saying no actively, you know, to opportunity. Is there an analog against that in your world? Do you see the same thing, or are you like, because you're like, it also feels like my opportunities are getting bigger. Yeah. At this point, there's so many things I could do. I have enough money. I can start just about any dumb business I want to start and probably take a shot at it. I can go and travel and do just about anything I want and burn time. I could do any of those. Those opportunities are there because I have the economics to do it, but I'm saying no way more often.
Yeah. I'm saying I'm so bunkered right now. I'm so focused on building this thing that I'm building that I never go out, but I say yes more than I used to, because I used to say no to everything or a lot of things. Here's what I've always said yes to, and I continue to. Anybody who gave me an opportunity when I needed it, I say yes to whatever they want. More or less.
Automatic yes.
Anybody where I even recognize, if I don't even know the person, but I recognize that they're in the position that I was in, I say yes. I just said yes to a job this week that I would never have done but I said yes because I met with the two people. I had a Zoom meeting with them, and I looked at it and I went, I love what these two are doing. I love it. It's not a thing. There were a couple people in my world who said, I don't think you should do it. It's not big enough, or it's this or it's that. I went, no. But I like them.
P.S. This is probably about you and me, Brad.
No. But Shayna, I've known Shayna since the year 2000, when I took a bunch of contest winners at MuchMusic down to Las Vegas, and she was working on behalf of the city and the hotels.
Yeah.
So I've known Shayna a long time. She told me about this. I said, yeah, if you know them and you vote, I'm in. Doesn't even before we had our meeting, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it because you vote for it. So I'm starting to say no more about some things, and I'm starting to say yes more about other things. I've become very conscientious of how I'm running out of time in this life. And so to accomplish the things I want to accomplish, I have to focus on them. And it's a little bit harder to do that when I'm always pulled in different directions. The thing I'm trying to launch now, I was going to launch a year ago, but too busy doing other projects. And so I'm more in the no's about some stuff and more in the yeses about other.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you were young, once you shifted gears from cocky to confident, kicked alcohol to the curb, and decided that you were going to become a functioning adult, which is a decision that it sounds hilarious.
But I don't know that I am, but I'm trying.
I'd say you're your own special version of it. I'm a 16-year-old kid, deep down inside, zero doubt about what I actually am, and so that's fine.
Funny, I'm closer to who I was when I was 18 and 24 than I've ever been.
Me too.
Right now, I'm closer to that 18-year-old and 24-year-old than I've ever. Hopefully, more wise and calmer, but I'm still that guy, and I love the fact that I've been reconnected to that version of me.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting thing. Like I do, like I've destroyed my body. I kind of always noodled around with guitar. I broke a finger so bad that I had to switch left. And so I literally had to switch to the other side. And I wrecked an elbow so bad that I had to have surgery on it. And I had that right in the middle of me hand building a tennis court on my property. And so I had to learn how to hit tennis balls left hand. Yeah. So before you know it, I'm the worst at tennis, and I can't play. I wasn't great at guitar before, but now I'm like actually atrocious, and I have to retrain my brain in this way that is like impossible to do. And I have more fun doing those two things so badly that I refuse to literally do them in front of anybody. Yeah. My wife has seen me play tennis left a few times, but if someone like Brad comes and we're hitting balls out at my place, I'll play with my right and just be light. Because I'm so embarrassed about how bad I am the other way. But I love like that. And to me, that takes me back to when I was 15 and I got my, first real mountain bike, and I was good at it, and it snowed. And I was like, wow, this thing's 10 times harder to do in the snow than it ever was on dirt. And now that's become this thing. And you have this like weird playfulness that I've refound in myself because I'm challenging myself with, like, you just see me, my chess is atrocious, but I can't help but play 2 games a day. Yeah. Like it's like, and it's terrible, but it's so interesting to suck so badly.
Well, because we're raised with this weird idea of excellence and achievement, and that's arbitrary. Not sports, because a winner is a winner, but the doing of it is the most important part. The most important, and I actually will maintain that approach gives you longevity in your career and in your life, and because you're doing it by building fundamentals. And being bad at stuff's me. I'm bad at so many things that I do, and I just love doing it. I just love doing it. Who cares if I'm no good? Who cares if you're no good at it? I just started taking tennis lessons. I'm in my 50s. I started racing motorcycles when I was 37 years old. I didn't start skating on ice to play hockey until I was 31. I didn't grow up in a place where, I didn't grow up that way. So amazing. And I'm terrible at all those things, and I do them anyway. And it's a bit more risky on the racetrack because I almost crashed the last time I was on the track. And I was like, God, that crash would have killed me. It would have been better if I was a little bit more skilled, but everything else, tennis and hockey, who gives a shit,
Yeah, those ones you really can't get hurt on, and it's amazing to explore. I had an argument. My niece, whom she married into our family, and she's amazing, Faith Stang. Shout out to Faith. She's an ex Alberta Ballet ballerina. And hilariously, she switched out of ballet school, went to public school, and my nephew snapped her up like immediately. It was the best thing he's ever done. I was like, good for you. Amazing. And so we were arguing the other day because she's become a really good mountain biker, which is my domain and my nephew's domain and Brad's domain. And we were having dinner the other night and she's like, okay, I need to ask you guys a question. I'm like, okay, hit me. And she's like, is it better to practice badly or to not practice at all? And I'm like, it's better to practice bad. Like if you're not good at it, it's fine. Go out and practice badly. You will sooner or later. She goes, I disagree. I go, and I was like, okay, so Faith, if you travel through America, you go to a off the beaten path, you end up on a reservation and there's a community center and they're doing ballet and they're doing it all wrong. Is it worse for them to be doing it or to be participating and try to learn it? And she was like, oh shit. I'm like, bingo. Like they're like, not everyone is operating at Alberta Ballet, like professional level. These things don't exist. Yeah. At that level, maybe don't practice if you're practicing poorly, if you know better, but if you don't know better, pick up the guitar and start strumming it. It doesn't matter.
Right. Well, I think there's a difference between practice and repetition. And
Totally.
if you're practicing, the aim is to get better. So you're avoiding, I think, what she might be, not to put words in her mouth, but she'd be worried about locking in bad habits.
100%.
And so it's the same thing with the content that I make and the things that I do. It's not just about doing tons of stuff. It's about learning after every few reps, just saying, okay, does it require a tweak? Maybe I need to do 5 more before I can identify if it requires a tweak. Maybe I know right away what I need to change. And I think practice and repetition are very different. And so I believe wholeheartedly, like when I play tennis, I take lessons and I practice, but a lot of times it feels like it's just I'm doing the same things wrong. But what I'm getting is a workout. In fact, I'm so inefficient at tennis and squash that I'm getting a better workout because I'm running more than I should. Yeah. So I'm actually getting a better result in the end. I'm never going to be playing the tour, so let's just have fun.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Yeah,
that's amazing. You brought it up at one point where being wedged into a situation, specifically, well, it's actually life or work, because I'm a firm believer in this, where someone wanted you to be something other than what you were. And it never really works out. If someone's like, okay, we want you to be this, and you're like, that's not me. The people that you see do that and continue with that lead these fairly authentic stints doing whatever it is. And it's fairly obvious that it's just not a thing that they should be doing. Do you have any examples of that in your own life and how it made you better coming out of it?
When there's a preface to it, which is a lot of times you have this idea of what you are and what you should do. And so somebody can present an opportunity to you that doesn't feel like the right fit, and you say no to it, or you go, that they want me to be something that I'm not, but your reason for not being that is not sound.
Right.
Because what do we know? We're 24 years old, we're 28, 35, even 52, making these big career choices. And it's based on your own. It's like, how do we know I'm authentically myself? Sure. But that's always how do you know what you are when you're 30, right? You're growing, you're learning. So I'm grateful that people would pull me aside and say, you should do this thing that you don't think you should do, because long-term, you're going to want to be able to do things like this. So mostly it's ego or fear or insecurity that prevents you from pushing yourself outside. So I'm very conscious of that. And so if I look at a situation, I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, why? You too cool for that, dude? Don't be an asshole. Why? You think you're too good for that? Don't be a jerk. You're not too cool. You're not too fucking smart. You're not too good for that. Like, why aren't you doing it? So once you kind of wrestle that part of yourself to the ground. Then you look at the opportunity and go, that's a bad fit, right? Then, yeah, I did it for sure. Hockey Night in Canada was like that. I knew it. But when I took the Hockey Night in Canada gig, it wasn't supposed to be a bad fit. The guy that hired me asked me to do a thing. Then when I got there, they said, oh, don't do that thing. And then that guy quit, and he left me with people who didn't value the thing that they hired me to do. So I knew it wasn't going to work.
Right.
But I knew it wasn't going to work going into it. But I just thought, God, I had my own late night talk show, and I hosted the New Music, and I hosted Loud. If I could get a Hockey Night in Canada, I mean, that's the complete set.
Yeah.
And the only show that I haven't hosted in Canada that when I was on the come up, I thought was that I hosted Live in Toronto, which is the show for me on radio. I hosted the New Music, which was the show in music television. I hosted my own late night talk show. I hosted my own news show. I'm not bragging, I'm just listing. And then, which no one's ever done all those, but then I hosted Hockey Night in Canada. The only show that I haven't hosted that I thought is the show is the National on CBC News. But that show's not that's not my path. But I pretty much got the set. So I said, yeah, take the hockey gig, because why not, bro? Like, why not?
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be tough. I knew I was going to get slaughtered by people inside Rogers. I knew I was going to get slaughtered by a certain demographic. I also knew that the show was going to work and it did. When I was the host, the guy who ended up booting me told me the ratings are going up with people under 30 and with women. That was the job.
Yeah.
That was the job. So the ratings were going up in the place they were supposed to go up. I was doing the thing I was supposed to do, but I knew that that's most people in media, most people in cable sports. And I keep in mind that, and I say this I don't say this to denigrate them, but cable sports guys don't know about anything. They don't know things about the country that people who come from network knew.
Sure.
They have a different worldview, cable sports guys. And I ended up working with a bunch of cable sports guys. I'm talking about management. And I went, yeah, this ain't going to work. And so, but here's where it did work. By the time I got to Hockey Night in Canada, I think I was if you remember, like when Ron McLean and Dave Hodge both got the show, they were relatively inexperienced. They were in their 20s.
Yeah.
By the time I got to Hockey Night in Canada, I was in my 40s. I was a very experienced host.
Broadcaster. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. To get that job and with varied career. But what happens is when you do something for long enough, people like you or they don't like you, but they're just used to you. And you become a little bit furniture or wallpaper. The Hockey Night in Canada thing, when I lost that gig, when it ended, they asked me to do a thing and I said no to it. And I knew that, and so it was like, this isn't going to work. They're like, we want you to do this. And I said no. I said it in a much more edgy way than saying no. And when I got fired from that job, suddenly the media outlets were reporting that I was just maybe too edgy or too youthful for Hockey Night in Canada. So they basically just rebooted my career by putting 10 years on it. Because suddenly I wasn't,
You're the bad
too
boy.
much for, yeah. In my life and in my mindset, in my career, to be too much for that is exactly what I want. Because I think that's where the real sweet spot is. And so it did me a huge favor. What I did was I started House of Strombo, the music set, and then right at a Hockey Night in Canada, shortly thereafter, I got the Apple job, which I'm broadcast in 165 countries around the world. So it was because I stuck to my guns.
Yeah. Door closes, door opens.
Yep. And
Classic story.
Totally. And because I didn't betray my values, right? I probably could have done some things differently in the Hockey Night experience. I probably should have, but I like how it turned out.
Yeah, that's interesting. Was there a point in there, right, when stuff was hitting the fan and you were like, oh, fuck. Like, there's always a realization of like, oh, okay. It's actually like, this is fucked. And there's heartache.
Before I said yes. No, not heartache. But not heartache. No. Like I knew it from the start.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I knew it from the start because I know that version of Canada sports makers and even to a degree the fans.
Yeah.
I knew that this kind of change was going to be a lot. Now, I also knew. Now, what's funny is that stuff I won't say on this podcast, but a lot of the things I told Hockey Night they should have done, they ended up doing a version of it after I was gone. But I still think that we were making the wrong show.
Right.
And I think you take a look at hockey viewership being down, you take a look at ratings in general being down in a lot of areas. I'm a big believer. It's partly because of the way not hockey night. Sorry, let me be very clear. This is not about them, but in general, it's the way sports is done and the way sports is covered. And so I wanted to take it into I wanted to take it to a new place. And I knew that they did not have the stomach for. In fact, when I got called about the job, I remember talking to Gary Bettman about this, and I said, "You guys, you don't want this. Like, you don't want this." And he said, "We do." And I'm like, "You don't. You don't." Right? I know you don't. Now, Gary actually did, but Rogers didn't. They didn't, and they said they did. And I'm like, I know when people are lying to themselves. And so I've interviewed a lot of people, right? You can pick up on things. And when you guys are lying to yourself, you don't have the stomach to do this way. I knew it right away.
Yeah.
So I signed a 5-year deal. I thought it would go 3. It went 2. That's more than enough. That's more than enough for me. It's more than enough for me.
That's exactly what happened to the original Star Trek, and that worked out pretty good for them.
We're not
bad, same timing. I'm always curious with new friends of like discovering what their real passions are.
Mm-hmm.
Like beyond what we've discussed today, and work is a passion, and there's obviously so much passion in here. What's the thing that we don't know about you that you hold passion in that is super important?
I am completely driven by freedom and the quest for it.
Wow.
I'm completely driven by it.
So is this a personal freedom or a freedom for people around you, a combo of everything? Like, is this
all of it? I believe in freedom of expression. I believe in freedom from calendars. Part of the reason why I took my career into the YouTube world, I got on YouTube in 2005 or 6, I think. We were on it right away. We were the first TV show that actually had shows streaming on, or clips streaming on websites. No one was doing that at the time. We were one of the very first. So, and around 2013, when the hockey gig started, knowing what I knew was going to happen, I went all in on YouTube at the House of Strombo. Because, well, for 2 reasons. One, I thought then it's where it's all going to be. I thought when everybody tells you a thing, they're generally wrong in the industry.
So, right? Sorry, and that would have been in regards to the fact that there was no chance streaming was going to work.
Yeah. Or that, and that the media industry is dying. No, it's not. Right. It's just shifted. Mr. Beast is a variety show host and a game show host, and Joe Rogan's a talk show host. It's not dying. It just shifted out of their control. So around 2013, I went in on YouTube, and partly because I know that that's where it is, but also because it's freedom. I'm in control of it as much as I can be. And when I'm at Apple now, and I'm still doing YouTube. I have a new YouTube show coming very soon. I'm very excited about it. And it buys me freedom. I don't want to, I'm too old. I mean, listen, at some point I want to do the thing I want to do. Right.
Yeah.
So in work, it's about freedom. In life, I hop on my motorcycle that's just outside this window here, and I put my tent and my camping gear inside my panniers, and I ride into the desert by myself, and I go camping by myself. I go to places where I don't have a cell signal, and I'm as addicted as anybody is to that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but I do it. So being that great Bob Seger line, unencumbered by all the hustlers and their scheme. Like, I want to be unencumbered, and it's impossible to be that way ultimately when you choose to engage in a social contract like I do. but that's the thing I care about the most. And I want that kind of thing for everybody. But obviously, I mean, in a very practical way, people are enslaved around the world and need freedom. Of course, that's not, I believe in that, of course.
Yeah.
But when you ask about my passion, it's like that, this idea that we're working for a system that is designed to destroy us. And most people have been so conditioned through marketing and mis and disinformation to applaud their own captors. And I have, maybe it's because I listened to the Sex Pistols and Slayer as a kid. I'm mortified by applauding my captors. I look at all these right wingers now who, and I don't have a problem with that, but who are suddenly handing their belt at a UFC match to the president, like fealty, kissing the ring, bending the knee. To me, it's the grossest thing in the world to bend the knee to the guy that, or anybody who's not getting people out of poverty and taking care of workers, and like anybody who is making sure that a hardworking person in a union is getting smoked. If you're not like, and I don't bend the knee to anybody. I support political issues and I will work on initiatives, but I don't support a party or an individual or a politician per se, because I don't bend the knee. And that's the thing to me that is so funny to me about the modern podcast game is how because the left is not, people call things the left. They're really talking about the middle. Right. The middle to the right bent the knee to their parties. And I was like, I grew up in neighborhoods where both parties messed us up, so I'm not bending. There's no fealty here. And that's also, I'm unencumbered by that,
Yeah, that to me, that's huge. And that's well, you said it really quickly. There's something magical about two wheels and a human.
Yeah.
Number one, because that is freedom in mechanical form. Brad and I, I've had motorbikes my whole life, and obviously I've grown up on a bicycle, and there's nothing that breaks the chains of a shitty week like getting on my bike and doing it. It just flushes everything away. It's amazing.
Because you realize that it's just, you have to be present when you're doing it. And also, if you think about it, dude, like, it doesn't matter anyway. What are you worried about? If life is going in a direction, if people like you and I who are privileged enough to be in certain positions, if we don't like our situation, if we don't change our situations, then it's our fault.
Yeah.
Right. So so if I'm busted up by something, get on the bike and just go.
Yeah.
Let's go. And I would always finish my talk show season. I'd be in Toronto for about a week, and then I would hop on the motorcycle and I would ride to California by myself, sometimes with a friend, but mostly by myself. And it's the best part of my year was doing that.
Yeah, it is. There's just something about, there's something so different because you get extra dimensional things and the physics that go into it. It makes you more tuned to the planet because you're leaning and you're like, you are way more connected with gravity than you ever would be in a car or any other, like a boat, whatever.
Yeah.
There's just a thing. And running, I don't quite get it because you're connected to the earth and there's beauty in what it is, but bikes give you this speed component as well, which let you be supernatural, something that you couldn't do without that technology, but yet you're 100%. So much more connected.
100%. And also, because I'm sure you're like this too, and many people who are watching this, my brain is so plugged in into what I'm doing, and it's also it's pretty erratic.
Yeah, I know about that.
When I go on these long road trips, I need a couple of days just to shut it down.
Yeah.
And the other component to it, especially on a motorcycle on a long road trip, is you become, whether the weather is good or bad, you become very much affected by the elements.
You are the environment. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get battered by rainstorms and battered by hail. And I remember riding a bike in, I think it was Kansas, and hail was crushing in Kansas. And you're just like, is there a hurricane coming? Or a tornado coming? I don't know, not a hurricane, but a tornado coming. And you're so broken by that's the kind of Unfortunately, that's what I need to experience to get to a kind of a zen. I go to bed at night listening to Venom and Slayer at full volume. I wake up listening to that stuff at full volume. I'll ask my smart speaker to say, hey, play this. And suddenly I'm starting my day with Rain and Blood. And I feel great, but that's just how my brain goes. So it takes me days on a motorcycle trip to shut it all down, to get connected to the environment again and be at peace. And I love that about it. Freedom, man. Freedom. Yeah.
Regulator simplifies the management of fixtures and displays for brands. We provide a seamless solution to allocate, order, ship, track, and manage lifecycle processes from installation to disposal. It's the all-in-one tool that ensures your brand moves smoothly in the market without any bottlenecks. Give us 15 minutes to show you how we will save you time and money. Go to brandregulator.com.
Speaking of unencumbered, and this is an optional thing, but it's something that I started doing. I started doing actually this at the very start of my podcast, and I did a thing called Cool Confessional, because I believe that I want to give away every dumb little thing that I hide that I find embarrassing about whatever it is. And just example, and I've used it a million times. I'm love Taylor Swift, but like crazy stuff. I go to the ballet all the time. I am very passionate about dance, which with my machismo style friends and stuff, I don't, we grew up in the snowboard industry. There's not a ton of people that are like,
yeah,
I'm going to go to the ballet tonight. I love it. And I've watched every episode of The Voice because there's something special there. It's not a great launching pad for careers, none of that. And it's not all beautiful, but there's magic in there that I find really interesting. So the Cool Confessional is me basically just being like, hey, here's something about me that I've not told anybody. And here we go. I'm an art director for a company. I'm colorblind.
Interesting.
Like that's a crazy move. Big brands come to us to do lots of stuff. I've insulated myself by having a team that runs color for me.
Yeah.
So I'm out of that, but like, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
So I got, on Instagram, I got hooked into a thing called How Deep Will You Go? And it's a series of cards.
Yep.
And it's level 1 icebreakers, level 2 confessions, level
Bring it on.
Getting deep.
Bring it on.
Which level would you like to play in?
You do whatever you like, bro. I don't have anywhere to be for another hour and a half. You please do whatever you want.
We're each going to do level 3.
Okay. Is level 3 the highest level?
Well, I don't know. It's called Getting Deep, and it's level 3, which is higher than level 1. So my simple math tells me it's the deep.
In theory, it should start at level 3, go to level 1, and then go to the basement if we're getting deep.
True. That's actually a good point. We need to call this company and tell them they're doing it wrong.
Okay. Unless you need level 3 risk,
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so I'm just going to fan it out. I'm just going to randomly pick a card. This one's yours. Ooh. Okay, if you could pick one thing, what would you change about society? That's deep.
People knew who the real enemy was.
Oh, that's a good one. Wow.
That we gathered together to know that we're fighting each other, but we're not the real enemy. There's another enemy over there.
That's interesting.
Make corporations pay taxes.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good start. Make P. Diddy be honest. I'll throw that in there as well.
I've interviewed him a whole bunch over the years. One time I flew to New York to interview him, and he was, often interview would be delayed with P. Diddy. And he said, just go wait for me in this room. And I walked into this room, and there was a very sweet woman there, older woman. We were talking. We had a really nice conversation. Diddy walks in with lunch. And so we just sit and eat. And it's Biggie's mom.
Oh, no way.
Mrs. Wallace. And I didn't know it was Mrs. Wallace because we were just talking about life and it didn't come up. And it was Mrs. Wallace. So Diddy was not in that room. It was just myself and Mrs. Wallace. And it's just one of these really beautiful moments that I was so lucky to have in my career. But that was Mrs. Wallace. Yeah.
Bro, how blessed are you?
Oh,
I don't use that word very often, but that's like That doesn't happen.
No, I'm so lucky.
That doesn't happen to
Yeah.
get just like,
Yep. I
that.
never went to any of his parties because, like you said earlier, I wasn't the kind of guy that would be in those circles, that would be invited to that. It's not my vibe.
Yeah, I've never been to that. There's Oakley. I worked for Oakley for years. There's one thing they did which drove me crazy. I did tons of amazing stuff with that company. They were like, it was fantastic. I had a great time. And but they threw a giant corporate party at the Playboy Mansion when Hef was still alive, and I had left, but my company that I run now was still a giant servicer for them. We still are today. And Jose, who is one of the people that I owe so much in my life to, didn't invite me, and I was bummed. And not because I want to go see like debauchery.
Yeah.
I just wanted, as a Gen Xer, knowing what that meant for a huge period of time in masculinity, to be able to just even go see it in person, I was bummed. So that's my one thing.
I did get offered a couple of invites to that place one, but I've turned them down both times because I just thought it was this was at the end, and I'm like, I think that place is gross. Now, this again, when I was 13, it would have been a different answer.
Yeah.
Right? When we used to have to steal magazines and hide them in a shed or something,
Yeah, there's a whole period that would have been a really interesting thing to see.
Yeah.
But that being said, I've had a unreal life, so I got zero complaints. Okay, so I'm just going to randomly dive in and grab a card. That's mine. Mine is, well, I don't have kids, but what are you afraid of passing down to your kids? And I'm going to remove the word kids and put nephews, nieces, and acquaintances. And it's an easy answer. Is my blunt, brutalistic ego.
Good to know. Yeah.
That's the one. So
because you're fragile. Do you think your ego's fragile?
Oh, fuck yeah. One, for sure. That's ego is the bigger and brawnier your ego is, the easier it's cracked, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. But when I was an athlete, I was brutal. I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the fittest, but I was ruthless. Yeah. And I would, I just was never, I was afterwards, I was quite nice. I was a nice enough guy, but in competition, I didn't need to be as ruthlessly mean as I was. Yeah. And it helped guide my life. But when I turned 50 a few years back, I decided to do two things: take singing lessons and to start chipping away at understanding why I'm such a fucking maniac. Yeah. And when I got into the maniac part, singing lessons were easy because I was and still am terrible. However, the ego stuff, it was really easy to be like, and I went to some therapy and just start looking at like, when I figured out how to be successful young on a bike and in athletics, it was attached to like this ego thing. Mm-hmm. And they rose together really fast and both scaled equally. And then the ego part didn't need to. Like, it just didn't need to. I needed bits of it. The ego to be like, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can perform. Yes, I think I can be the best in Canada / world / whatever. But I definitely didn't need it to be cutting and ruthless to my.
I would, yeah, for sure. I would pass down. Don't be so intense about work. It doesn't matter. Build a better life than a living. Don't not build a living, but build a better. Take care of your mental health and your strength. Be prepared for appreciating every moment. The problem with what you and I do is we drive ourselves so hard that you miss the day that you just had, and it could have been your last. And so I would tell people, really be good at being present, which I wasn't very good at.
That's interesting. I've spent a lot of time staring 6 to 3 years down the road, where most of my focus was, which leaves very little attention much to my chagrin, for my wife, my friends. I try to be good in those areas, but my focus is always so far down the path that it's distracting. And so that's actually insanely accurate, good advice. Like when you talk about that, like I've got, and some, one of the other things I've been working on is I, I'm not afraid of dying, but I really feel like I've got so much more to do that I like. It's not fear, but real adjacent to it, because it feels like I haven't accomplished not even half of what I want. And to your point earlier about how precious time is, and how, when we're talking about saying yes versus no more and these different things and trying to be more precious with that, is that a like, is that a natural driver that you think exists just in, like, maybe it's our generation? I don't know. Because I see people retiring, like boomers retiring, they don't give a shit. They just retire and they wither away and they die. And I'm like, I don't fucking retire. I don't want to do that. Like, I want to, like, I got so much to do. I'm 55 in a few days.
Yeah.
And like, I can't even imagine getting the rest done in the next 55.
Well, you won't get it done, all of it, right? And also, unless you're doing a thing that's going to make the world a profoundly better place for somebody else, which I hope that's what it is, then what we're doing is just stuff we like to do. So it doesn't really matter in the end, It doesn't really matter. But whatever it is, what did John Lennon say? Whatever gets you through the night. So for me, it's the same as you. Like, I work at this insane, there's all this stuff I still want to do, when most people in my career are not doing it the way I'm doing it. They're taking easier paths. I don't, because there's still so much I want to do, but I'm very aware of it, like to what end, right? So my hope is that I can help people go to bed out with my shows, go to bed maybe knowing a little more than they did when they woke up, feeling a little better, and even being a little lovelier when they woke up. So I have a goal that I think provides value, but it's not like if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. So I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm very aware that it's around the corner, relatively speaking, right?
On the grand scheme of things, yeah.
It's very much around the corner. And my big thing now is not about the stuff I want to get done. I look around and I look at the stuff I have, and I'm like, I got to get rid of this shit. I don't want to be, you spend this first part of your life accumulating a life, and then I don't need all this. I don't need this.
Yeah,
I don't need these books. I don't need all these shoes. I wear the same 3 shows all the time. But because I was on TV for so long, I have outfits from all those years of being on the air. I looked at my closets. I live in 3 cities. I'm like, I don't need all this shit. I got to get. So I'm at that stage where I'm not free because of that. So to me, it's not that I want stuff I got to get done. That is true, but also it's the weight of God, when I die, I don't want my mom to have to go through my house and clean it all up. What a disaster. So I'm really thinking about that. Then because someone told me this story, and I don't know if it's true, but I want it to be true. And I almost asked him once, because my friend brought me, we were out at a club one night. He's like, yo, come over here. We went there, and it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And the guy there was a small group of us, and we were all just kind of dancing, one of those late night party nights. And he was right there. But I didn't ask him. It was Mick Jagger. And I heard that Mick Jagger, the place he lives, or one of the places he calls home, has nothing in it. It has his laptop and a chair and a table and his bed, and that's it. He has nothing. That to me sounds like heaven. To have, part of the reason why I want to move out of where I live in LA and move into a cabin is because the cabin is the art. So I'd have nothing on the wall. I don't want to have anything anymore. Got my motorcycles, got my camera, got my laptop. I'm good. But I have that's where I'm at. So I want to, before I die, it's not that I'm worried about what I'm not going to do accomplishment wise. It's more like, I got to get rid of a lot of shit, man.
Yeah, I've been dumping stuff in my life. As a hilarious thing that I've noticed, and I've got a few friends that have backed me up on this, is traditionally, the higher up you go in an organization, so you go to big organizations and you start looking at the structures of people, and in their offices and different things, and VPs and senior VPs and stuff. The higher up you go, the less shit they have in their office. To the point where you'll go into like president's office, it's a glass table, a chair, a single computer, and a coffee cup.
And usually one business book, only one on a shelf. Like I've seen that. You're right. I've seen that in so many places. One book.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately about like, well, one, I know I've built myself a prison. I've been lucky enough to build myself a beautiful prison, but it's a prison. I'm trapped by the economics of providing and all these other things. It just is what it is, but I love it. And it's my prison. And I crafted it, but fuck, I'm stuck in it. And the key is in someone else's hands, unfortunately now.
Well, this is the thing about marketing in the modern era is that, especially when people are building their own thing, is to let them know that as they develop their way of communicating to people, because that's really what it is. It's this kind of, we're not selling them a bullshit idea of what it is in the end. They have to feel it's true, because it has to be true. And you and I are in the same boat in that way. It's just like, wow, this is I got to keep the train rolling just to keep the train rolling, and that's not freedom.
No, and in business sense, that actually is a trap. Like your business is then actually screwed, because you like that's how business works. The big guys get going. They get so good that they are stuck in this trench, and then someone small comes in and can disrupt, because they're not in the trench. They go left, right, up, down. They do whatever they want. And they destroy you.
About 15, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I was when I was doing the talk show. In my home, I had a home. I had stuff in it. I looked around and I counted between the basement couch and a couple chairs and the table upstairs and my studio. I counted 19 places to sit. Right? I just went 19 places. This is things you do when you don't drink anymore. You see patterns, and you just see patterns in everything. This is one of the things they never tell you, by the way, when you clean up, is that you have to prepare yourself for all the patterns you're going to see, because you're so awake all the time. So I counted 19 places to sit. And then I realized I never have anybody over for dinner. I sit downstairs and watch TV.
One seat. Yep.
And I have a bed that I use. And I thought, okay, I'm mostly going to have a woman will come over. So I should get a couch that can fit at least one, maybe two or three people. That's it. My couch right now in Toronto, 2 people. That's it. So what I did was I got rid of everything else. I got rid of my chairs, my table. I got rid of everything else. I got rid of my books. I thought books on my shelf were like deer heads on a wall. They were trophies of some information that I caught. But what that deer should be doing is running free. So I got rid of all my books. But the problem was, because like I said, I started doing this YouTube thing very, very early. I started having people over to film. I had to film.
So now you needed a set.
because people walked into my house and thought I was dying. Like, is your health okay? Why? I would walk into my kitchen. I have a chandelier in the house. I would walk into the chandelier because there wasn't a table there. And I didn't realize. I'm like, oh, fuck, if you don't have a table, you're going to walk into this shit. So I actually had achieved this when I was 30, no, maybe 40. I had 38. I had nothing, and I've never felt better. I had nothing in the house. I had a bed, I had a couch, I had one chair, and I had a piano. I wouldn't get rid of my piano because I love to play piano. And now I look around, and I've got 50 HDMI cables here and 400 lap. What do I need this shit? I got all these books. I don't need these books. But because I film here, it has to look.
You need to look like a human.
Yeah, to look like a human being, right?
Otherwise, everybody be thinking you're a pod person.
Yeah, totally. But I aspire to have that version of Mick Jagger's life, the mythology of a place that has nothing in it.
That's funny. I've got a really good friend, Job Tucker. Shout out to Job in Maryland because they're amazing. My wife and I we have a 1970s drug dealer built bungalow It was a Hell's Angel. He got murdered on the back deck.
Oh God.
It's in the foothills of the Rockies. It's it's really cool. It was terrible when we bought it. It was the people before us had bought it. And shockingly, when they went to do a reno, this older couple, they found a whole bunch of like stashed money in the vents and stuff, which is great. So they did the reno on it. But that's who built this place. So we're in this 1970s drug dealer built murder house, and we love it. No ghosts. And well, just one, and she's friendly, so we're okay with it.
I live in a haunted place here for sure. I know the feeling.
But we have lots of, like, we have stuff, knickknacks. We've been there for 17 years, and it's modern country. It's like a wacky style, but it's nice. Like my Eames chair fits with the bull skulls.
I have one Eames chair that's an old airport lounger from the 70s. Orange. You could still see the cigarette burn holes in it from when you could smoke at airports, and I'll never get rid of that chair.
Yeah, that's a keeper forever.
Yep.
And we had our friends Job and Marilyn over, and we had been to their house. They live in Park City, and we went to their house a couple of years ago, and we went in, and I was like, big, beautiful house up in Park City. I'm like, looking around, there's nothing in this house. Amazing. There's like a couch and like a weird picture frame and like a couple other things, like nothing in the kitchen. I'm just like,
what a dream.
Yeah, I was like, this is like, it was so stark, it was shocking. We left, and I went on to Zillow to see what it looked like when it was listed 5 years ago, because you can go that far back.
It
was exactly the same. It had all the same stuff. They bought it complete and just never added to it. And I remember talking to Job. He's like, you guys got style for days in your house. And he's just was crouching down because he felt like he was going to get crushed. It's not that much stuff, but compared to his place, it was like a museum of stuff.
This is what I'm starting to do here, man. I'm starting to slowly simplify. I have 9 motorcycle helmets. I don't need 9 motorcycle helmets. I need 2.
Yeah, you need 2. I literally hope that by the time I am getting ready to be rolled down my hill and into a hole, in fact, actually, I'm going to claim it out on, I want to be burned on a pyre in a Darth Vader outfit. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm going out. And my nephew knows that, but now it's public.
Me, I want to be buried in Joshua Tree, but they'll never find my body, so that'll never happen.
I love it. Joshua Tree is a perfect spot for that, by the way. You want to be buried? You don't want to be cremated?
I want to be buried.
Wow.
Think about this, man. This is the thing I think about life. We spend this enormous amount of time on this planet taking.
Hey, give back.
So when you go on the ground, I understand everybody has their own thing. Oh, cemeteries take up land. Well, I don't care. Go on the ground, feed the worms. That's how I want to go.
Yeah, you don't want to be embalmed though, and in like 100 years we can dig up George and
wrap me in a pine box, or wrap me in a linen sheet that's biodegradable, like the old Marty Robbins song.
Yeah,
bury me in the ground, and let me give back, because I took a lot from being alive. Being alive is such a privilege and such a gift that I want. I heard this thing once, and it really stuck with me, because this is one of the dumb things I do. Is when I work out, I often listen to things that are not designed to pump me up, but designed to break me emotionally.
Sure.
I don't want to equate my lifting with, fucking aggression. So just because I'm aggressive in every other aspect of my life. So I listen to these podcasts that are heartbreaking. So I'm trying to finish a set and I'm crying, right? I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I love that. But I heard one that talked about that when a whale dies and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and then the rest of the ecosystem there starts to feed off it, it essentially, let's say it lives for 75 years, it's essentially by the time it takes for the bones to be bleached, it's about the same.
Wow.
So it gives as long as it took.
5 years worth of nutrients.
Yeah, and I just think that's fucking great.
Yeah.
I love that version of this world. So put me in the ground, man, or wrap me in one of those bulb trees, and and then so I can provide shade for those who need shade, not cast shade, or maybe cast shade for those who need that too, for as long as that tree lives. But with the way the climate's going, that'll burn down anyway in 3 weeks, so it doesn't matter. But that's what I want.
dude.
But have nothing, but to have nothing.
Yeah, like I literally want to go out with everything gone.
Yeah.
I want to leave a bit of a legacy economically, if I can do it for some of my family, so that I don't leave them at least a burden. I don't want to leave a burden. No fucking burdens.
That's right.
I don't want to be a burden in my old age in any form. Although I know I will be. We come into this earth as a baby and we leave as babies, even if it's for a small time at the very end.
Totally.
However, if I had it up to me, both me and my wife would die the exact same second, because I don't think either one of us would do fantastic without each other. And I want to go with zero. I don't want to leave any burden. There's a few precious things that I think I'd like to hand off to people, but those will be gone. Yeah, because I'm not using them anyways. I'll give them away way earlier.
Yeah, and like I have a 71 El Camino and a 66 Harley FLH. I know a couple of cats who will take those. They'll outlive me, because they've outlived so far. But yeah. Don't want to be a burden, but also be a joy.
100%.
That's what storytellers. Not to circle it back to, for in the marketing space or just the content space, but be the kind of storyteller that makes somebody feel better about themselves, challenge them when required so they have the tools to feel better about themselves. Because I think that's the key. People have to have personal responsibility and accountability, but talk about things that are really affecting people. And this is one of them, especially, people in our age group, the Gen X group. It's not just that we're dying, but our loved ones are dying or being incapacitated. It's coming so quickly, and the opportunity to go out as a community is pretty beautiful. And we have to work at that. To go out as a community.
100%. Yeah. We're such a weird generation of people. Yeah. We're right in the middle of the biggest technology change, environmental change, you name it. We've never seen like a real authentic war real close to us here in North America, at least.
But we grew up thinking the nuclear bomb was going to get dropped every day, right?
Of course. Kids. Do you remember being run through drills at school?
Oh yeah. Do you remember?
Like I told that to my
day after that miniseries, the day after.
Yeah. It scared the shit out of me.
And by the way, if you think about it, that's the crisis that was pitched to us. The Gen X thing is so neat. And I know every generation has their thing, but we had that. We had the generation when the manufacturing jobs were leaving. So the older people in our life, they weren't working anymore. So we were watching the collapse of the system. We were watching the rise of this weird trickle down thing that never worked. And we had suddenly AIDS. So sex killed you. And we're 14 when all of this stuff is happening.
14.
Right? It's like, a nuclear bomb and AIDS, and there are no jobs. And when we're 19, the internet shows up, 20. And so what does that mean? Robotics comes, more jobs gone. We grew up in that strange thing where, and I know this generation had COVID and there's lots of stuff in AI for sure, but you add AIDS and nuclear war, that really, and our parents come from the era where our grandparents escaped an actual world war. So we were so close to it. It just really rewired us. Really rewired us.
It's rewired us. And let's be really honest, we're the ones making AI right now. Gen X is the AI design team right now.
Right. But it's being driven by these board of directors who just want to increase the quarterly report. And also it's I believe, being driven by these energy companies, because they know that to use an AI surge, use infinitely more or X amount more energy than would be required to run a Google search.
It's an economic chase. There's
100%. So it's nobody's asking for this except for this handful of people who are they're building nuclear plants to power AI. Like there's only a handful of people that are really going to benefit from. Now, science and medicine and technology and surgery, that'll be much better.
That's the hook.
Yeah, that's the game. But this other stuff is really being driven by people who are trying to put us out of work. I really believe it.
Short term, it is for sure. The short term, the long tail of AI will benefit everybody. The medical, the health benefits that will come from that, higher logic on how economics work that pull the veil back on shadiness.
Also understanding language of animals, which is
Yeah, I want to talk to my dogs.
Yeah.
Talk to my dogs. I'd love to talk to a dolphin. Those things are infinitely interesting. Like, it's crazy. That stuff's literally in our lifetime. We're going to see some really wild stuff. And I'm an absolute massive consumer of following that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because it's talked about so extensively. However, it's fucking amazing. And it's so interesting. Like, I can't stop it. So I may as well sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I'm in no way, shape, or form no one has any way of stopping us. Too many people.
No, totally. And you have to be engaged with it. I'm engaged with it. I make it work where it can work. Absolutely. There's so much good that can be done with it, but we know it's going to exist unregulated. And because the people who are running these companies and a lot of the people in politics don't have nearly as much power as people think, or as much control as people think. I think that this could go really bad if they don't if they put in protections. And I mean, you think about what's happening now with cell phone bans. I think, was it Australia maybe, or New Zealand? I think it's Australia. Somebody just banned where social media is not allowed for kids under 16.
It was Australia.
So there's technology. We let tech companies just do their thing,
which is crazy.
And so I think that there's some value in maybe with AI and generative AI. I think they're often talked about as the same thing, and we've had versions of AI for a long time.
Totally.
Generative AI has its value, but we know that the drivers of this are really a lot of it, and there will be benefits and there will be pitfalls, but we know the drivers of this. It's not the average consumer. The average consumer can't afford a head of lettuce anymore. This isn't going to make it easier for us to afford lettuce. And you have all these social media entrepreneur CEO cultures who are super rich, who got rich, by the way, taking advantage of a lot of the working people who are now walking around acting as if we don't. And they're the villains, right? They're trying to sell us a thing that's going to increase their share value. That's their vested interest. So I'm all in for AI, of course, because it is what it is. But I don't just trust it all and trust the organizations that they will do the right things, because they won't. Because historically, they haven't.
No, they haven't. It's interesting because you brought it up about politicians and not having control. This is something that I chat with people a lot about, but like, I am a firm believer that there is not a singular small cabal of people that direct things on the planet, but there's probably 10 or 20 small groups of people that believe that they are directing things on planet, and the collective group of all of these are swaying the tides around the planet, creating mayhem. And none of it, why it looks so out of control, is because there isn't a singular thing directing. It's kind of a bunch of little ones that are enough of them to make a mess. What's your thoughts on, like, this is so far off topic, but like, what do you
I'm totally happy to talk about marketing if you want to. Totally happy to.
Fuck marketing. That's fine. I'm more interested now what you think about the cabal on the planet. Yeah. Like, do you actually have, like, I'm just curious now, because we're just edging around this. Like, is there a main group of people driving things on the planet? It's so far off base, but what, like, are you a yay or a nay guy?
I think there's a version of what you're talking about for sure, because you look at it's about a banking system. It's an energy system. It's a tech system, but ultimately you have a couple of companies that own an enormous amount of, relatively speaking, of the shares of an incredible amount of companies. It's a stock market system that, the way it's regulated, people talk about a free market all the time, but it's not a free market, and it's never a free market, or we wouldn't have bailed all these people out when they did. Bailout people don't bail out companies. Let companies fall. We don't let companies fall. right? And we let small business fall.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference between me and most of the people that I deal with in this space is that small business should be protected. Giant corporations,
Open to scrutiny.
because they get away with an awful lot, right? So I don't think there's like 9 people controlling the world, but I definitely think the people who are involved in the interest rates and the people involved in the banking system, for sure, and it's not even hidden. We know a lot of them. We know their names. We see them. We watch, and then they have their stooges, which are these upper end CEO entrepreneur culture. Not all of them are bad. There's some good ones, but these social media influencers who talk about getting yours, I think they're the stooges of those guys. And then you have a bunch of people. So the reason why it looks out of control is because it's only out of control for us, and it keeps us fighting each other. And it's not out of control for the richest. It didn't look at how much money they made throughout the pandemic. The rich ones, the really wealthy, and look at how much they made the days after elections. And they go, well, the whole stock market went up, so everybody got a bump. No, bro, you got a bump of $28 or even $50, or if you're lucky, your share went up 5,000, and that's a lot of money. These guys are making an extra billion.
Yeah, it's like a trillion.
Yeah. So there's definitely a group of people, but I don't think it's look. And by the way, the world's so messed up. It's possible. What you're saying is possible. So I don't say that it's not possible, but I just look at it and say they don't need to hide because they're doing it all out in the open. They're doing it all out in the open. They're the same group of people that would send in union busters to beat the shit out of unions, trying to get, by the way, a work week that we all benefit from now. We don't even benefit, we pay for it. And then they convinced a bunch of people to be mad at unions because unions are imperfect. I get it. But they've convinced everybody that you don't need unions or you don't need overtime anymore. And they're taking it away from you. It's all the same shit. It's the same group who did it then who are doing it now. It's just been repackaged because these, like, really, to me, it's it's the social media companies, not the tech companies, like the distribution companies. It's not that. But the social media companies who are actively pushing agendas, proven to be pushing agendas, they're the ones who are, if we can break through that, that level of monster in the video game, then those people you're talking about should run and scare. They should be running.
Yeah, because they'll be pulled open. Are you I'm afraid of Elon owning X guy, or are you I'm happy that Elon owns X guy?
I believe that all social media is a broadcaster, and I believe every person with a social media account is a broadcaster, because everybody with a social media account can sell an ad, become an influencer, right? So so all social media should be subject to the same laws as everything else. And so it is not a free speech platform, and it's stupid that he would say that. And it's even more stupid that people would believe him, because he doesn't believe that, because it's only free speech when it's his side of the argument. They will easily shut down the other side. So I would be fine if these guys on that kind of weirdo version of the world we live in now, if they were honest or consistent, but they've never been and don't have the capacity to be. So I'm not a fan of, I thought Twitter sucked long before he took over. And I think it's no better now because of it. I post on Twitter. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, even though I have no time for those Zuckerberg crew, but I still, it's my job, so I need it. Those are my main ones. But X has been a place where you can see, you can't post. It was a great joke. Was it from George Carlin? He was talking about if you had said something to the effect of, I like pancakes, it would take, by the 8th comment, somebody would say, fuck pancakes, I like waffles, or something like that. Somebody said that. But everybody's a broadcaster. Right. So I don't think these platforms are free speech platforms the way he describes it. And I think he's disingenuous about it. And I think he's playing this role because he can get away with it. And he's marshaled a bunch of these people to be his stooges. And then underneath them are just the regular people who've decided to take a stand. So aside from that, I don't really have an opinion on him, except I think that
except for that opinion.
Yeah. But I think he made a really poorly built, beautifully designed car. And I think that what he did
Yes.
with electric vehicles, like I thought the Tesla was I had a Tesla. It's not a great built car, but it's an incredibly designed car and
Yeah.
a real revolution. So there are things that he and his people did that are pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Starlink is unreal. Tesla is.
Yeah, Starlink is unreal until he decides I'm I'm going to shut it down because in a war zone because I don't right. So now who is he really? It's just a rise of fascism on all different ways. And I really didn't want to use that word fascist today, but here we are.
Here we are.
No, you know what I
Here
mean? It's like Starlink is unbelievable, but it's unregulated.
It's unregulated,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, like the massive power being in the single hand of anybody. Doesn't matter how great that person is. This is going to be a problem regardless. Doesn't matter because you're having a single person make a decision over something based on their own observations and position, which is a tough thing.
Totally. And all these people who are on the political side of him, who complain about government and complain about oversight and complain about the system, they're the same people that will run and fly the military and police flag, but those are government too, right? And there's a reason why you believe that. Why don't you want it to protect people who are poor? So there's a real cognitive disconnect happening, and it's always happened, but it's just exacerbated by this kind of social media thing. I use social media. I don't think it's all bad. I think lots of good has come from it, but I think like lots of good has come. In fact, it's created an independence for an enormous group of people who can make a living with their own brains on social media. I think that's fabulous. But I believe in robust oversight of all these powerful platforms, including.
Should it be all of them, or no one has oversight over anything, including broadcast? Is it all or nothing?
It should be. Everybody should play by the same rules, or nobody should play by the rules. But I don't trust the human condition enough to play by no rules.
That's okay. Fair enough. And I actually agree with that.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think that. Like, I understand there are a lot of people who don't see it the way I do, and that's okay because we've democracy is a version of compromise, and that's the thing that none of us want to be able to do anymore. I acknowledge that there's some things I won't compromise on, human rights, that kind of stuff. But I understand that, so I don't get mad that people disagree with me. But I just call balls and strikes, right? I see it for what it is.
Totally.
And it's like, well, I acknowledge my inconsistencies on certain issues for sure, but you just think you got to protect people. And however and I don't mean protect them from themselves, because I think that's government overreach.
Yeah.
But yes, there is sometimes. But do we think that what the pharmaceutical industry has done to people is great? They've been running practically unchecked here. We talk with the FDA for sure. There's like rules, but how doctors have been getting and the companies have been working so hard, and people are so addicted in ways they shouldn't be. We needed way more regulation
in that world. For sure.
So I just don't trust the companies. I never trusted companies.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, I'm using the incorrect term for sure, because you and I are definitely in alignment with what we're saying. I just said it really, really poorly.
No, but I think we agree on. I think we believe that the system doesn't work right now for us because we think it was designed this way, and I think it's reached its natural end, and now it needs a refresh. And I think that's true, and I think we both agree. And I think probably a lot of people who are in the comments right now not liking what I say will suddenly we do agree on that the system needs a refresh.
100%. Yeah, like it's bloated itself beyond its functionality. 100%. Like,
and but it wouldn't have been a problem if the bigger corporations paid taxes. And I keep calling them stooges because that's, I believe it. These anti-tax or these anti-corporate tax people who talk about how they're wealth generators, that's a total lie. If those companies pay taxes and actually were invested in their country, we wouldn't have a problem. We wouldn't have a problem.
Apple having most of their money hidden in Ireland for such a long time is a crazy thing.
But it's not. It's all the companies. Yeah. So the laws have to change, right? And it's all the companies have to play a role. Which the companies I work for, by the way, including Apple, probably don't like this point of view, and that's okay. That's fine. If companies, if they're breaking the law, it's not their fault. Change the law.
Change the law.
Now, if there are companies out there, I'm not mentioning any particular, but if there are companies out there that are actively funding local, municipal, provincial, state, federal, national politicians be in their corner, well, that's anti-democratic.
Mm-hmm.
That's anti-democratic. By the way, poor people don't have a lobby. And
no, they don't.
And everybody loves to attack the left or the poor, but not all left or poor. And the neoliberals and the neocons are the same. They don't have the lobby that all these other sides have. No lobby. I wish the great marketers and the great storytellers, and there's a lot of them who are doing it, but more would come together and start to tell the story of what's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody freaking out and being pro RFK's position on vaccines and fucking A, man. So we're going after pharma and the food industry. That's what we've been saying for a long time on this side of the political argument. We're going after them. Cool. Are we going after all of them? How quickly do you think he's going to get shut down?
This is going to be an interesting thing because this I actually have been tracking really closely. It's going to happen real quick. He's going to hit a ton of one. I love the bluster of him moving in and doing this. Like it just is a great bit of entertainment right now. But beyond that, I can't imagine it's going to be as effective as anybody believes. Like even his greatest proponents, it won't be nearly as effective as they think. If he could, but let's look at it this way. If he could make as high as a 5% change, just as a random percentage in what's going on right now, that is a huge difference than what's going. That may stop the slide health-wise. It might shed the light on some really bad stuff that at the very tip of the unhealthy spear is.
If you can overhaul the food system in the West, absolutely. Absolutely. The problem is the people that he works for are the ones that made this system the way it is. So let's see. I'm not optimistic. But I'm hopeful.
It would be a it's a wacky revolution from inside against the people that built the building. Yeah. I don't understand how. I don't understand. I can't wait to see it. To be perfectly honest, because I think it's going to be. It could be really great or it's going to be very entertaining.
It's going to be something. It's going to be really catastrophic for some people.
Yeah.
And it will make a handful of people richer and it'll be entertaining for the people in the middle. But it'll also be catastrophic. It's just, it's going to be a really, what's that old Chinese proverb? May you live in interesting times.
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah. We live in a very interesting time. Yeah. George, thank you. This has been amazing. Officially the longest podcast I've ever done.
We didn't get to talk about the thing, but if that's okay with you, I'm fine with it. You know, the marketing stuff, you know,
marketing. We'll come back to marketing. Marketing is part of what we do, but I think people understanding what it takes to make it in the world by someone who has done a very good job of being themselves, being authentic, and living a happy, truthful life. That's huge. That lesson transcends anything that I can babble on about in my narrow subject field. My narrow subject field of marketing is why I do this, because I'm really good at selling people sunglasses or skates or we get paid lots of money to do that. Yeah. But I want to learn more about humans and what drives humans, what gets people. Like if I can help 10 people from this podcast make a better decision, not to drink and to maybe go back to school or pursue music or pursue whatever, go do it. Stop the bad, go do the good. Life is short. Quit fucking around and go do it.
Yeah. And hopefully when they listen to you and I, people connect to you and I in the way we're having a conversation, is that this is not about finding a solution tomorrow. It's about moving the ball forward for the next generation to move the ball forward. And we're just part of a continuum for as long as we are, until the time travelers / aliens reveal themselves, which apparently is going to happen any day now.
I hope so. It's supposed to happen. Did you see there's something crazy on the internet that some AI bot back 10 years ago predicted that Joe
Rogan and Trump. Yeah, I saw that.
interview Trump, and then whatever it was, 33 days later,
Yeah.
they will announce that aliens are on the planet, which is, by the way, everybody, December 3rd. So it's coming up real quick. So get ready for our overlords to show themselves. And
Can you imagine, bro? Can you imagine on the off chance all that's real? All the lies and stories we've told over time, and this is how it's going to go.
Well, I assume like the little kid inside of me is praying for that to be true because of the entertainment value and everything that has driven me to this point. Would the little kid in me dreams that is the thing? And I'm not going to lie to people that I'd say that that's not in my psyche. 100%.
Well, here's the thing, though. So I interviewed one of the guys who was a big financer of these new discoveries.
Yeah.
He got called into official government buildings in the U.S. He was worried he was going to get killed or disappeared because of it. But they told him, you're essentially right. And I had asked him they said, you're not 100% right, but you're kind of right. Let's show you what's really happening. And he told me he doesn't feel any sense of vindication because none of it's good news. And this isn't going to go well for humans, is what he told me. And I went, oh my God. Oh my God. And he's one of the guys that funded it. I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
This isn't good for humans.
Yeah. I'm like, this is going to end before I get to see the Habs win a Stanley Cup again. Come on. Give me one. Give me one more.
Oh my God. Well, we all may as well take up nicotine patches and cocaine and have a great ride.
We'll be always zin in our lip watching the ships coming down.
Oh my God. What a hilarious thing. Yeah, I am so entertained with, I think that's why the 18-year-old in me is come back in such glory, is all these things are so crazy. It's so crazy right now. It's
nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Who would have thought that an Epstein thing actually would be true, that there would be also then on the heels of it a weird P. Diddy thing, and that our heroes are like, you have Will Smith, who just like crushingly acted so poor. Like all our heroes are cratering.
Yeah. And while I would never lump, yes, I know what you're saying, but if you notice, but here's what's not surprising with the Epstein thing. Have you noticed that nobody else went to jail except for the two of them?
Of course. There's no conspiracy going on there at all.
Where's all that?
Where's the list?
Yeah.
Made a list.
Let's, like, for sure. Yeah. So listen, one of the great things about growing up listening to punk as a kid and metal was you learn very early to kill your idols. And you learn very early that no gods, no gods, no masters, right? Like you learn very early. So all the stuff that's happening, I don't feel, but maybe it's, and I don't think I'm a cynical guy, but I don't feel particularly surprised because all the stuff that I've been reading as a kid and listening to musically, they've been telling us this forever.
Yeah, it's straight. So
it's just finally coming to a head, and I'm here.
It's like all coming to a head in newspapers, in media, and feels a little authentic and strange, and it's a wild world, and it's Christmas right away, so we're going to be fun.
I love it. I'm here for it all, because why not?
I love it. I'm going to be in your area in Palm Springs. Are you around for a tennis game sometime early year?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be in Palm Springs for a motorcycle show in January at some point, but just hit me up. I'm very bad at tennis, by the way. I'm very bad. So if you want to win, I'm your guy.
Here's how I play.
You have to play left-handed, by the way. You have to play lefty.
No problem. Tennis, in my opinion, is about love. The more like if I hit the ball to you in a way that you can't hit it back to me, I'm not playing proper tennis.
Yeah.
So you will get the ball every time from me in a way that you can hit it back. Because truthfully, I want you to hit the ball to me so I can just continue to hit it back.
Nothing better than a rally, right? Nothing better than a rally.
It's
in life and in tennis.
Yeah, it's all about. That's why we built our own tennis court, is because we wanted to be able to go out there and play tennis on our rules and not feel weird and pressured. It was just like, we can go out there, we can, turn the tunes up.
What you're saying, by the way, is the metaphor for life.
It is.
It's that everybody, and this is why I keep going against those guys, those influencers I'm talking about, and talking about the companies, is that they don't want you to rally with them.
No.
They don't want you to. They just want to smash it towards you, and they've convinced you that you, the royal you,
Yeah.
you can one day be them too. But we know that that's not how this usually goes. So we just want a good rally. That's what life really is.
We all want a good rally. I'd like a good serve, which I don't have.
Oh God, no! I'll be underhanded. fault.
Oh my God.
Well, I guess it's got to go back like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Instagram feed is nothing but swimming and tennis tips.
Mine is motorcycles, music, and well, by music usually it's like obscure old clips.
Yeah.
But because I started playing tennis, I got a lot more tennis clips in my discovery, which I'm happy for, because then you just see what a beautiful sport it is.
And there's actually really good instruction on there.
Yeah.
Like really good. You're the best. I am very happy that I got to meet you.
Was this all right? Was this what you were kind of going for?
It was terrible. How dare you?
Attaboy.
How dare you come on and not tell any good stories?
No, I have a few.
Thank you so much. I super appreciate you as someone who's influenced me by feeding me media for years. Your interviews have been great. I loved you on Hockey Night. It was great.
Thank you, brother.
Keep being you. I'd love to, when you get your new stuff set up, and we can talk about marketing and what you're doing in your new stuff for marketing and stuff. We can actually talk about marketing another day.
Yeah, let's do it. Do it anytime.
Yeah. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time, because it's the most precious thing you can give us.
No, man, I appreciate it. You and Brad, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Everyone else, appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to Marketeers Clubhouse. We'll be talking to you soon. Appreciate it.